While the do-it-yourself and making agenda promises democratization of products and technologies, it can arguably exclude under-resourced communities who lack adequate skills and material resources. This paper aims to explore the following research questions. How can we engage individuals from under-resourced communities in community-based participatory maker activities? What kind of material scaffolding is required to foster this participation? And how can individuals from under-resourced communities and low-SES backgrounds practically leverage maker practices to design technology, creating value for themselves and for their communities? In order to explore these questions, we collaborated with an e-waste recycling center which worked as a social enterprise and provided work experience to unemployed individuals who are part of Australian Work for the Dole program. The center was situated in a large shed and was located in a predominantly low socioeconomic status catchment of a metropolitan city in Australia. The center engaged work for the Dole participants in disassembly of e-waste and employed skilled staff who engaged in electronic repair work and repurposed e-waste to create new products. We conducted two maker workshops in the e-waste recycling center. Participants were provided with a generative e-waste toolkit through which they repurposed e-waste material and developed novel technology prototypes that created value from their perspectives and agendas. The maker workshops were inspired by co-design principles, hackathons, and the Inventor Day formats, and engaged a total of 24 participants. Out of these, 20 were work for the Dole participants and 4 were staff members. The generative e-waste toolkit that we developed to scaffold participants included the most commonly received e-waste materials at the center. Participants were advised to make use of the e-waste toolkit to develop their ideas, and we also suggested that they could supplement the toolkit with additional e-waste material from the center, such as Arduinos, printer toners, and so on, if required for their prototyping. The maker workshops were 2-hour co-design sessions where participants designed ideas and developed their initial prototypes as a proof of concept. This was followed by a week-long time where participants were able to develop a functional prototypes of their concepts. Through the workshops, participants generated design concepts and technological prototypes that embodied their values, catering to individual interests and motivations, as well as addressing challenges and opportunities to improve their environments, both the center and the broader community. Some of the example technologies are shown here. These are motorized screwdriver, screwdriver sharpener, sunlight alarm system, blind spot mirror, visual temperature monitor, art installation, amongst others. Now we will discuss specific examples from the maker workshops. One of the groups developed a set of prototypes around motorized screwdriver. Repetitive unscrewing over extended period of time during the disassembly process caused significant strain on hands and arms of workers. One of the participants pointed to his hand gloves and said that he had been using them for protection for some time now. While the gloves helped initially, they were not a solution. The participant further added that while disassembly may sound a very simple work, it was very tiring and required a lot of force when getting things done. There was a lack of female participation in such type of work, and by making motorized screwdriver, the intention was to make disassembly work easier, simpler, and inclusive of all. In the second example, we show an attempted art installation that focused on visualizing sound. Here, a group decided to develop a prototype that created visual representations of music, where a set of recycled speakers were connected to a mobile phone and dried printer ink were placed on a piece of paper that was taped onto the speakers. By playing various musical notes, The group explored different visual patterns on the paper. Prior to this iteration, the group explored movement patterns using beads on an acrylic sheet placed on the top of the speakers. A participant who led the design of the prototype commented that while she was an art student, she always wanted to try such type of exploration. And she further suggested that there is a potential for providing art-based therapy using such forms of practices. We now move on to the discussion. It was clear that the prototypes developed during our maker workshops were not groundbreaking nor innovative. However, the generated prototypes embodied participants' socio-political agenda pertaining to their self-identified problem spaces. The motorized screwdriver, for example, showed how a seemingly simple and mundane task of unscrewing became more than a deterrent when compounded over several hours of work, and became a reason for discouraging female participation in the disassembly work. The idea of visual representation of sound with therapeutic applications was a result of intrinsic motivation stemming from a long-standing unrealized personal goal of one of the participants. Upon deeper inquiry, the underlying motivations reveal the shared communal value within the idea. As a therapeutic art form, the participants saw tangible sound visualization as a mechanism for providing therapy for mental health patients. Our findings also present some interesting strategies for scaffolding participation. Our first strategy is that the generative toolkit should be provocative. Our toolkit, the box, was able to foster creativity and dialogue among participants and was able to structure reflexivity. The material constraints of the e-waste were central to fostering creativity given that participants explored ideas through tangible materials while having limited technical knowledge and skills of making. Materials in generative toolkit should invite freedom to play and tinkering. The perceived disposability and low value of e-waste, coupled with the participants' familiarity with the material itself, played an important role in scaffolding participation and fostering engagement. With materials like e-waste, there is greater opportunity for creative exploration because participants had no fear of breaking things while exploring and developing the prototypes. Generative toolkits should incorporate local knowledge and local context. Working with e-waste meant that participants were able to grab any suitable component that they saw in the center, a common feature of ad hocism. The example where acrylic beads were replaced by a dried printed toner for visualizing sound demonstrated that the space itself enabled a strong ad hocism through which participants explored creative ideas. Incorporate values in scaffolding participation. In examples discussed here, we see how value-laden the otherwise mundane artifacts are. Prototypes such as motorized screwdrivers became vehicles for inclusion, reducing barriers to participate, and a commentary on protection and work effort. Create an ongoing maker culture through participation. Hackathon-like structures are not just a mean to create new ideas and materialize concepts, but they are also a mean to create community and engagement and social reform. There is a greater social return and accomplishment that is achieved through temporary participatory structures such as our maker workshops. Thank you.